Okay, hi class. So I'm gonna videotape a couple lectures here for the students that are missing it due to maybe PSAT or they're out for today. So this is the DQ. What do you think of when you hear the word ecology? And so if you want to write that down. But then we're also going to pass back papers because we have parent-teacher conferences tomorrow. And we're going to file everything from chapter 1 and 2. And then we're going to start a brand new unit called Ecology. So chapter 1 introduced 4 unifying themes in biology. Systems, okay, how everything's organized in systems, parts of a whole. Organization, which is like cells. Homeostasis, form follows function. Evolution explains diversity and unity of living things. Okay, so chapter 1, 4 unifying themes, but today we're going to focus on system. And so if you don't remember what a system is, it's just parts of a whole, and they all interact in some way. So a question for you, what systems are you a part of? You're actually a part of many. I mean, like right now you're in the school system. You're in the community. You're interacting as a part to the whole. You have systems inside of you. And so animals and humans are part of an ecosystem, and that means we just interact with the environment to get energy and materials to carry out life processes. So in this unit of ecology, today we're going to focus on what ecology means, and then kind of like define some relationships or levels of organization that ecology has. And then we're also going to talk about how we can study those relationships for today. So 13.1 objectives: summarize the levels of organization that ecologists study, and then describe some research methods ecologists use to study that environment. And so the word relationship, what does it mean to you? So give it a few seconds, think about it. But ultimately, it's interactions, okay? How you interact with others, is it a positive relationship? Is it a negative relationship? Is it mutual? Doesn't hurt, the parties involved. So, but ecologists study the environment at different levels of organization, and so ecology just means study of interactions among living things. In fact, the word ecology comes from the Greek word okos, which means house. And so if you think about your house and how you interact with your parents, or if you have siblings, again, positive, negative, mutual, relationships. You're just looking at the dynamics of it. And so you can study relationships within each level in ecology. So the levels of organization, starting from the smallest and working your way down to the largest, you have the single individual called an organism. And remember, an organism is any living thing that displays the characteristics of life. You get the group of the same species living together. You get a population. A community is a group of different species that live together in one area. And then you get the ecosystem that includes all organisms as well as non-living things, so like water, soil, rocks. And then ultimately, you're going to get to the biome, which is a major regional or global community.
If any students that took the PSAT use Mr. Fisher's calculators, please bring them back at this time. Thank you.
So, example, yourself. Okay. Right now, we have a population in the classroom. It's every person involved. The community, a group of different species that live together in one area. Well, let's just say, like the town of Wheaton, it's got squirrels and stray cats and birds and a bunch of other living organisms that we all live together in a certain area. Let's take a step back. Now you get the ecosystem. So not only are we going to include, trees and, those stray cats, but now we have to include non-living things. So like roads, signs, any rock, the soil underneath our feet. People might argue with soil. I mean, yes, it's a non-living thing, but it holds a lot of living things. It's kind of its own little world itself. And then the biome, major regional or global community. So being where we are, you could say that our biome might be the Great Plains. But if we looked at it maybe just a little touch closer, grasslands. If you head up north, you kind of get into the temperate, kind of deciduous forest. So this is just, looking at it from above. So looking at this diagram, which level of organization does it represent? Looks pretty global to me. So hopefully you're thinking it's a biome. Okay, this picture. This picture, which is a picture of Barrow, Alaska, the northernmost city in North America, that is an ecosystem, okay? Because it's not global, but it's pretty large. And we have, the town and the ice shelf itself. So, okay, what about this one? Community, okay? We got different species living together in an area. Very majestic picture, if you will. And this one. This would be your population, group of the same species in one area. And finally, the organism, okay? So all of these levels of organizations, they're within each other. They overlap. You have the individual to the population to the community to, oh no. Oh, okay, sorry. The organism to the population to the community to finally to the biome. I'm just curious. Yeah, that's what I had. Okay. Ecosystem. Okay. Okay, the last thing I want to discuss is how we can study these levels of organization. And you can, study these levels 3 ways: observation, experimentation, and modeling. So an observation just means you're going to watch something over time. And there's 2 ways you can do it. You can actually see it with your eye. Maybe you're going to use binoculars, telescope, or just your own eye. So that's direct survey. You see it actually happen yourself. Indirect survey means you look for signs of the organism that you're studying. So maybe you're going to look at tracks, okay, footprints, scat or feces, or a recent kill. With direct survey, we tend to use direct survey for animals that are easy to see or easy to track. And then we tend to use indirect survey for animals that are harder to track. Okay. You can also do field experimentations, pros and cons. So pros, you can, one benefit of a field experimentation is that you get a very accurate picture of the interactions. But the bad side to field experimentation is you don't have control because you're out in nature. You have less control. There are lots of variables involved. You can't account for weather. Weather can affect behavior or the presence of whether or not you'll see an organism. So keep that in mind. And then the third way is modeling, where you use computers or mathematical model to create a virtual nature, basically. So GPS tracking movements of certain populations, the amount of snow, tectonic activity. Those are all modeling because, maybe you want to look at the danger areas of an earthquake and try to prevent some of the damage. So you'd use a model. And then you'd probably use this model and shop it around to people saying, hey, you should really do this just in case we get that big earthquake or something. I put up here BWCA. It's for the boundary waters. Last time I taught this lesson, the boundary waters was experiencing a lot of fires, and so they actually had a modeling system of the fires that were taking place, and they were tracking the fires and then kind of estimating where the fires were going to move to. So the link doesn't work anymore because there's no forest fires going on right now up there. One example of field experimentation when I was in college, we were looking at like mole populations near the college, and so we had to capture the moles, and then we needed a way to track them. Well, we didn't have fancy GPS tracking devices, but we did have some kind of like a fluorescent kind of glow-in-the-dark dye, and so we captured the moles and we covered them in this dye, and then we released them. So and then at night we went out with flashlights and certain lamps that would illuminate their path back to their dens, and then we were able to track the mole communities nearby. So yeah. Okay, so hopefully you can summarize the 5 levels of organization that ecologists can study, and then the 3 methods that ecologists use to study the environment. There is an assignment. It was worksheet 13.1, one-sided. Lots of tables to fill out. And that concludes 13.1 lesson.